Hey guys, thanks for clicking on this video. This is actually a call that we do every Monday. We call it the WingMan Weekly. We do this at 6 p.m. If you'd like to join us, the link is in the description. Hello. Let me introduce myself first because we always jump into it, or I should say I always jump into it and then I don't say who I am. My name is Steven. This is my brother Nathaniel. Together we are WingMan. We built this to be a hub of information. It's evolving. What my original goal for this was to take topics and then cover the topics, have people on covering the topics, answer questions. We are moving into that. We have just had a lot of 20-minute calls, and I said, I think for right now, we should be answering all the questions that we see in our community so that people understand where we're coming from, because we have not clarified our message as far as POD. We have talked about discover, understand, serve. We have all that information. Again, that information is not easy accessible. So we are working on that. When we get that, and when I feel like we lay a solid foundation, then we will be bringing on more people and covering more topics. But as me and Nathaniel have talked and tried to come up with different solutions, this call is something that we want to have people on in our community, or even if you're watching this on YouTube or anything, I feel like that's all part of our community. If you're seeing us, welcome to the community. But to allow people to be on the call and then ask us questions. I feel like that's where we thrive. ID is something that both me and Nathaniel find that we are very good at because of how the business is set up. It is pretty much organically, it is keywords, indexing, understanding the platforms, and then the other side of it, which is art, design, style, theories. That's all Nathaniel. I feel like that's a perfect mesh for us. So all that to say, we love answering the questions. We love the 20-minute calls. We're going to try to combine those 20-minute calls with this call. We want to add the element of having people join us on these calls and answering more questions. We want to start inviting people on camera to ask their question, and then we can answer those questions live. I really enjoy the community aspects. I love going to the conferences. I like talking to more people. I want that same kind of feel on these Monday calls.
This is something I said, I think, in all of our 20-minute calls that we were doing, but we want to make sure that the content that we're putting here is like relevant and helping you guys, and not just stuff that makes me and Steven feel good about ourselves. Like, oh yeah, we did another Monday call. We want to make sure that, if you're spending your time with us on these Monday nights, if they're watching them live or even recorded, and taking the hour out of your day that sometimes these calls go, we want to make sure you're getting value from them. And then it's not just, me and Steven talking about what we've got going on. But we did this last week, and I thought it was kind of a fun way to kick off the call. So I did want to ask Steven how his weekend was and if anything happened.
I don't do this a lot, but I was just watching TV. I should say I was watching races on the TV that we have in the living room that we don't use. It's been sitting there for a year. I think I turned it on twice. But I was really into MotoGP, so I just watched a ton of MotoGP racing. MotoGP is just like the Formula One style racing, but with motorcycles. So it's like the highest tier of racing. So I watched the live race, and then I went back and watched a lot of other races. And one of my favorite riders is Valentino Rossi. He's an Italian. He's been racing for a long time. He switched from Yamaha to Ducati, and he was crashing a lot. And that's why I stopped watching it, because it was hurt my heart to just watch my favorite rider like continuously crash on a bike that was not really suited for his riding style. And I was like, I can't watch this. So I stopped watching it. He is now back with Yamaha, so it's very exciting again, but there's a lot more competitive people in the space. It got me thinking, though, why does it seem like a lot of these racers on the highest level crash a lot and like crash out, get DQs, and then somehow end up winning the series? Like it to me is such a turnaround from like having complete failure to then finding like the ultimate success. So at one of the races that he crashed out, I watched an interview that he did, and he was just saying like, I'm crashing a lot because I'm learning the bike and I'm pushing myself to the limits. I haven't had to do this in a while because the bike that I had before, I knew the limits, so I'm crashing a lot. I was like, that sounds like some BS. I don't know about that. So I went back and watched other racers who are more well-known now, like Marc Marquez, and just seeing like, it's true. He crashed out like the first 5 races and won the series, which was like mind-blowing. And there are other people that have done that too. And even in the lower tiers, like you'll see them step up to a different style of bike that's faster, and then they just like crash like crazy, and then all of a sudden they figure it out, and now they're off to the race. The best riders ride to the limit, and the only way they know that limit is by going over the limit. So when you see those riders coming up, that's why they crash so much, is they're just trying to find that limit, and the only way you can find it is actually go over, crash, and fail. And I was like, that sounds like me. That's almost how I run our business. I'm constantly taking things to the limit and breaking them, and then figuring out where the limits are, and then working with inside the limits. I think that's why getting rejections inside of merch didn't bother me. I think that's why when KDP was doing those limits for the days, I was the one hitting those limits and then asking a lot of people if they were hitting the limits, and they were like, no, there's no limits with KDP. And I was like, well, I'm trying to upload 200 books and it won't allow me to. And they were like, you 200 books in a day? And I was like, yeah, and I'm trying to do 1,000, but at 200 they stopped me. And then other people were like, hey, yes, they are hitting limits per days. Now it's gone, but before it was like, I just like pressing the limits on every front just to see where the limits are so I can go and like work comfortably. Just like when me and you were starting off, and then I had this idea of doing 1,000 listings a day, like just always pushing limits in everything that we're doing. It led me to just thinking about the last week, all the calls that we had, the advice that we gave. It's coming from a very like, we ask you a lot of questions, process that, and then give advice. And it goes through a filter of like how I like to run my business. And then it also goes through you as a filter of how you should run your business. And I think because we've worked together so long, we understand that it's not good to do it my way and it's not good to do it your way. It's good to find a balance. And like we advise people from that standpoint. Because I think before I would have told people like, well, what you need to do is you need to make 10,000 listings. And then in those 10,000 listings, you'll figure out like, but it doesn't need to be that. I do think you need to set goals, but it's not to the extreme. But I did want to just bring that up to say, if you are doing any kind of business, I think if you want to be like great and have full understanding of it, don't be afraid to push those limits. Don't let a rejection or an IP claim or any kind of problem that you might run into in a PO2 business stop you from taking those first steps. I guess that's my 2 cents from this weekend.
Yeah,
watching those races and just
that was way more than we could have just stopped the call right there. I felt like he was like home alone by himself. He didn't do too much. I was expecting like a good, but maybe I should have
watched a ton of races, and it just I think just being inquisitive, like I'm always trying to like process different things. So when I saw the races, it was like I can't just sit here and watch the races. I was like, I wonder why that is. Like why are they crashing all the time? This doesn't make sense. Like he's a professional rider who's been racing for 10 years before he switched. How is it now all of a sudden he's crashing every race? Every race you're crashing? Like, come on, something's happening. So it was just hearing him say that sparked something where it was like, that's interesting. Let me go look into that. And then I went and watched races and then was doing research. I had the laptop in front of me as I was watching them. But it was just interesting to hear him say that and then making those connections to what I was doing. Like, oh, that's how maybe it's because we're Italian. Maybe it's the Italian Sicilian blood where it's just like everything is an extreme. But just finding the limits and things was very interesting to me. And just, I think on this call, I want to give some advice that is maybe like pushing people far out of their comfort zone. But it leads into the 20-minute calls. I think 20-minute calls that we had were very good, eye-opening for me and for the people that we were doing the 20-minute calls for. But one of the calls really stuck out to me. I believe it was with Michelle.
Yes, Michelle.
She has been selling online, and POD is a new venture for her. When we first got on the call, we were just asking questions. How long have you been selling? What are your goals? Standard questions that we asked. And then she almost immediately went and showed us this spreadsheet. So I got excited. And then I was like, this is perfect. She had a process laid out. She had everything like documented. And it was very interesting to me to remember like when I started helping Nathaniel and seeing all that stuff. And then I started asking her some questions like, okay, where are your stuff indexing? How is this working? And then it was becoming obvious that it was like the amount of listings that she needed to justify all the stuff that she got to that point. It was just flipped. And I was like, this makes sense. This is where I started helping Nathaniel. And then I started like bringing Nathaniel a lot more into the conversation to go, okay, do you remember that transition and like the hardship that we had in just like communicating when everything that Michelle has done, I was doing and trying to like force you into that, and then you were like, I don't understand anything you're saying.
Yeah, why would you do all that work?
A listing. But I think it unlocked a few different things.
Oh
You
yeah, for
said
sure.
something
For me
that
too.
I was like, oh, that's the difference between like OARA private label really and the difference in POD.
That was definitely a fun call. And Michelle, thank you for being here live tonight. It was like so many flashbacks happened on that call for me. So she started showing us a spreadsheet, and I was just like immediately like, I'm overwhelmed. Like, I'm glad Steven's on this call with me because he's going to talk. But it was a lot of flashbacks to when me and Steven first started working together on this thing. And it was just Steven trying to like break down like this matrix and all these things like going on in his head. And hearing Michelle kind of do the same thing, where she had put a ton of work into creating this amazing Excel spreadsheet that tracked all of these different things, and you check this box and it changes these things over here. I was like, I'm out. The light bulb that went off in my head was, oh, Steven comes from a background of selling physical products. Yes, it's still on Amazon, but it's in a completely different lane. And the thing that he was really focused on at that time was private label. Like that's what he was doing, every hour of every day was basically going into private label because we just figured out some cool connections. But it was a lot of data analyzing, which is the part of the business that Steven enjoys. So he was enjoying himself, but I had nothing to do with private label because I was like, if you need me to make a phone call to a manufacturer, cool. But outside of that, like I'm not looking at all that data. And so I saw this, like the two different worlds kind of clash there. And it was really looking like at that conversation that me and Steven had about 3 years ago, where I was like, I was coming from this print on demand mindset. I didn't realize I had the mindset at the time, but it was just like, I want to move forward. I want to take action and make listings and put these things up because there's no cost to me. Like, what a fantastic thing. I can make mistakes and it's not going to cost me money. As where private label, if you make a mistake, like it's crushing to spend like $10,000 on this product, the shipping fees to get it to the like process, get it to Amazon, wait your 2 months for that thing to finally hit shelves. And then if it doesn't sell out, like especially if it's a Q4 product, and then you're like at the end of Q4 and you're like, wow, I still have half of my stock. Like I made a huge mistake.
We still have Jenga games sitting in this office.
Yeah, still to this day, we have some products sitting around. So seeing Steven like with that burden and me realizing like I have no money like in this thing. So why am I not just throwing out listings? Why am I not maxing out all the accounts that we have? It was like, taking that mindset and just seeing this like explode in front of me while Steven and Michelle were having this conversation. I was like, oh, I think this is, I don't know if the problem, but I think this is something that's hindering people from having success with print on demand, because the traditional way that you sell online is not the way that works best in our experience and from all the calls that we just did for print on demand. And basically that mindset is like the people who are just starting selling online, who don't have this background of doing OA, RA, any of that stuff, and don't understand like the mindset that it takes to do those things, are having what looks like to us more success because they're just running forward. They're like, okay, I got 10 slots. I'm going to fill these up, see what happens. Oh, great. I got tiered up. I'm going to fill up all these slots, see what happens. Like that is the mindset, I think, of someone who comes into print on demand and doesn't have the old mindset of I have to do my due diligence. I have to put a ton of time into this. I have to do all this data research. I have to find the perfect keywords. I have to analyze the customers perfectly. I've got to find, the right design, the right colors. Like I have to match all of this stuff up to even put up one listing because that's just the traditional mindset. And so that was, a really fun call, a lot of aha moments. I think I was just sitting there like quietly, like thinking about how crazy it is that we're like I was seeing that same conversation happen. But throughout all the calls that we did, it was just taking action. And I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But really in this call, I saw so clearly like Steven's now print on demand mindset, talking to someone who has more of the private label mindset or traditional selling mindset. And to see Steven give advice to Michelle, it was just like such a beautiful like a moment where I was like, oh yeah, there's like so many things that we've actually learned and applied over the last 3 years. Like this is why we are having success now and we weren't before. And this is why me and Steven can talk and have conversations now. And before it was just like, I don't know what my brother's doing.
The mindset that I was suggesting for her is to have a hair trigger. This, I think, comes from my communicating with Nathaniel and not understanding how he was just so flippant about like throwing things up there when I felt like you needed to do a lot more due diligence. But then having those conversations with him and saying like, there is no cost to this. Why wouldn't I just throw things up there? It was like, I don't have a good defense for that. I don't know. Why don't we just do that? And then just being a lot more easygoing with how we put things up there. And I think that's when we really had a lot of success, was when me and Nathaniel both combined this call. The most important thing, I think, for getting started in this POD space is just get listings up. That seems to be the golden ticket. All of the calls, I don't even know how many we've had because it was just like dizzying going back to back to back. All of the calls, it seemed like there was almost a clear-cut line between the people like Michelle and myself, especially starting, that were just like thinking and having a hard time getting listings up, and the people that were a little bit more like Nathaniel and just throwing everything up. The people that were just throwing stuff up were having a lot more success because it is POD, and you just need to put listings up, get lines in the water to find success. There are so many variables in this POD space, and it's impossible to like know what's going to work. You could do a ton of research for keywords, for indexing, for where you want your listings to show up. But until you actually make that listing, how Amazon handles it, how other platforms handle it, like it's so mind-bending to think about all that stuff that you can't guess at all of those things. You just have to get the listing up, see where it lands, and then adjust from there. Find what works best for you. Find your own Goldilocks zone. Does it need to be more competitive? Does it need to be less competitive? Does it need to have more traffic? Does it need to have less traffic? I think, especially to start, get as many listings up as you can and try to avoid as much competition as you can. Another thing I want to address here quickly, and I think as we go next month and I have a bigger vision for next month, I want to break down this idea in more depth, but the landing zones was an idea to help people who needed a way to validate quicker. I think a lot of people starting off are seeing that 5-step test and like that is the thing that they're latching onto, and it's too difficult for them to like see where that belongs in their process. When you're starting, just make listings. Don't worry about validating it too much. Once you get the process of making listings down, then find a validation process that works for you. The 5-step test there is a guide to help you, but when you're starting off, just get listings up. There's a concept that I don't have a great word for, but I'm coining the term as just customer paths right now. Customers come and find your products from many different keywords in many different orientations of those keywords. Those I'm calling customer paths. Things that we like to see that autocomplete, that's a customer path. They've searched it so many times that it's like set a groove in Amazon. So Amazon is letting customers know, hey, when you're typing this in, a lot of other customers are typing this in. It's not the only way that they're going to find your shirts, but it's a very common way that they might find your shirts. And I think the only way to truly understand all of this, just make a ton of listings, make listings, make listings, make listings. I truly think that is the most important thing when you're getting started, is making listings. Now for the second part of this, I'm going to try to push people out of their comfort zone and say, make 100 listings. Make that your goal. I was blown away at the amount of people that we talked to that were like me, that just didn't get more than 20 listings or more up. And they would say, I made 20 listings. This doesn't work. Merch is not where I want to spend my time. It's not worth it. And I was just like, you're so close. But it's unrealistic, I think, to only make 20 listings and think that you're going to find a home run. Like there's so much to this business that you're not going to understand in 20 listings. Now, do people make one listing and it sells like crazy? I'm sure, but that is like the smallest percent of people that are doing this business that are having success. I had an idea and put up 200 shirts just for that idea, and I've sold 4 in the last 3 days, but it's because I put up so many listings and different variations of that listing, casting a huge net. Now, if you're just starting off and you only have a few slots, it's not possible to do that. But if you have 10,
also
refresh those listings as much as possible to make your...
Tell them how long it took you to make those listings, because 200 listings probably seems like that was like 2 weeks worth of work to some people.
I don't want to say it because it sounds unrealistic, but it's because I'm not an artist and I make changes very quickly, especially with Spark. I could change out the image real fast and change up where the wording is. I broke it up. I made 100 the first day in an hour and a half. That's from doing the research. That's from making the art. That's from 0 to listings, 100 in an hour and a half. The next day, I did another 100 in an hour because I didn't have to do the research part. And I was just tweaking small things about the art that I thought might be more visual pleasing to those customers. But the only reason I even spent another hour on it is because I was finding my listings all over the place. And I was like, okay, I'm on the right path. Now I want to give these customers more purchasing options and see what they really like. Do they like the red? Do they like the green? Do they like the purple? What colors do they like? All of those things. But get listings up. Put the listings up. Put the listings up. I don't want that to scare anybody off. I'm not saying you have to build a process where you can get 100 listings up in an hour, but make your goal create 100 listings. I know Nathaniel, when he started, probably took him a month to make 100 listings, if not more, because he wasn't really refreshing them.
Yeah.
And he was only doing 10 and then waiting till he got tiered up and then make 10 or 15
It took
more.
me a day to make one listing because I was spending all my focus on the art. It took me like 30 seconds to do the keyword research and put the thing up there, but it took me all day to design
what is this,
the
shirt. Cat shirt name,
yeah.
cat shirt title, cat shirt brand.
Even the old way, kind of when we first started teaching, I think, I'd have to really think back about this, but even when we first started like teaching openly and when I left my job to do this full time, I was only making 10 listings an hour. I remember that pretty clearly because that was like my benchmark to hit. So the game has just completely changed with the new way you can make uploads to Merch by Amazon with Spark, the tool that you can easily just manipulate things with the new way we're doing research. There's just a lot of things have changed, and we have a system that just allows us to do that. So it does sound even a little preposterous to even say you could do 100 listings in an hour. But when you understand all the things that we're doing and how seamless it is to go from idea to design to the keywords to design to listing, once we start showing that off, I think it becomes a little bit more understandable of what we're doing and how we're having success with that. But yeah, you said 200 listings. I was like, some people are going to think that's like a month's worth of work, which it definitely can be. But when you're doing things the way that we're doing them, because we have this mindset of we just need to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks and work from that information instead of doing a massive research up front like we were when we first started. Or when Steven got involved, to then like doubling down and doing all those things. The game has just changed. We've evolved with it as, even Merch by Amazon, like I said, their uploader has changed, which allows us to do just more, which is nice.
Yeah, it is just, I see what's possible. And I guess that like the expectations of people is something that we're always trying to show. You talked a little bit more about that, but I just wanted to explain a little bit more about this 100 listings idea, because I know I'm going to get a lot of kickback on this. Create 100 listings with the mindset of a 1% conversion rate. Because Nathaniel was asking me, I might have even been this morning, I apologize, it's been a long day. Like, why is it that I want to put 100 listings up? And I think it's my mindset is, even if I convert at 1%, I will be happy. Because if I can do this in an hour and convert once, then I'm getting paid $5 an hour, which is not great. But if it converts multiple times, then I'm just multiplying the amount that I made in that hour. I've sold 5 of them at $5. That's 25 for the 2 hours. That's not great, but it's only been 3 days. Like I can just ramp that up. And that's how we scale our business. We are not looking to sell all the products that we make, but if we can sell a certain percentage of them, our in-house is more than 1% is what we're shooting for. But especially if you're going after a whole new niche, just have the mindset of 1%. If I can convert at 1% and I can speed up my process to where I can make enough of those to justify it, then that 1% conversion will be justified in the process that I build. But irregardless of all that, make 100 listings with the mindset of 1% to get your 100 listings up. Something that we are putting more videos up on YouTube about is my mom and her process from starting, because I don't remember what it was like to start over. So I wanted to understand where people are getting stuck. So I helped my mother, who admittedly has a hard time with the computer. She says that openly all the time. But I showed her how to get, she's very close to 100 listings, but she's starting to see sales. And that's why I really think to unlock this whole POD process and find success, making listings is the most important thing. My mom will tell everybody, I don't understand indexing. I don't understand keywords. I don't understand landing zones. I don't understand all this stuff, but I have ideas and I want to test these ideas. One of those ideas that she had hit, and now she can look back at her whole catalog and go, what is this one? Why is this one selling? Oh, it's going after a Christmas theme, while these other ones were going after stuff that's just way too flooded. Oh, I'm starting to understand what's going on now. This is why I think this one's succeeding and while these other ones are not. And it's just from doing the work and putting in the time, putting in the hours to make sure that you're getting listings up and then seeing what works. But 100 listings, think of a 1% conversion rate. Now until the end of the year, we're going to try to help people with the strategies and the tactics of how to actually do that and how to make this 100 idea seem a lot less nerve-wracking. But the way that I'm doing it in an hour is I'm really hyper focusing the keywords and everything that I do. I spend a little bit more time on that to gather all the keywords. And then I take the keywords in sets and then try to go after them and then make designs that when I go to the results page, I can kind of, like Nathaniel, look at the patterns, see what's there, the colors, the styles, and then just make that and then be quickly making adjustments to that. So I can take one idea, turn it into 5, and then test that 5, and then continue to do that rapidly.
Yeah, and again, this is from us compounding all of this information that we got from doing the calls, with people and seeing, I think people in kind of every space, whether they're, super integrated with their print on demand or their private label business, and they're absolutely killing it over there, and they just want to understand how they can use some of their team to work on print on demand because it seems like a great thing, like no inventory, less overhead, all these great benefits. Like how can they tap into that? And people just completely starting off like I found you guys 2 weeks ago. I just started putting up listings. Like I didn't know what I was doing, but I'm having success because I just hit the ground running. So taking in all of that information, trying to calculate all the people's like backgrounds and how that affects, their ability to move forward to make all these listings and stuff. So that's kind of where we've come. And when Steven started telling people this, like to make those 100 listings, like I think that will get you just to, have those wheels turning and to understand private or print on demand a little bit more. That's when I was like, oh yeah, this is so crazy to hear someone who is so data driven at the very beginning to now being like agreeing with me 3 years ago, where it's like, we just need to throw stuff up and see what works. So it's just a cool, mindset change that we're seeing. So we wanted to, set your expectations a little bit with that, understand that maybe only 1% of your 100 listings might sell, but for some of you guys, that will actually mean like having sales after putting so much time into doing the research, which would be good. So we want to see you guys have success with that. But like Steven said, that 1% does go up because this is a compounding business with print on demand. That thing, if you make it and it sells once, we used to say this a lot, but like having one sale is a really big deal because it means that you did something right. And now you have data back from Amazon of like, oh my gosh, this thing worked, whatever it was. I need to check the patterns of what worked here and try to do that more. And that's why we say it's so hard to like give advice in this business. Even talking with my mom at lunch, like talking to her about the sale that she had and like where it's at, and she couldn't even find what sold. So Steven had to help her like find what sold. But she was like, yeah, I don't know what I did. It's working. Like, I don't understand it. And I was like, yeah, now you know exactly where we're at. And she just started like dying laughing because she's been asking us for, a while, like, show me what you guys are doing. Like, how are you having success with this thing? We're like, it's so hard to just be like, do this, get this outcome. So we're realizing with setting better goals, it's not so much an outcome-based goal that you have to set. It's just an effort-forward goal that we have to set. And so that's why we're both excited about this 100 listings because, again, just compounding all this information, talking to all these people and seeing that's the thing that's working. People putting effort into this thing, people not, seeing, I don't know. Again, I don't know the proper word to use for the people coming from private label, but it feels like baggage to me that you're carrying over into print on demand, where it's like this mindset weighs so heavy on you that you have to do the perfect listing. And that's just not true with print on demand. You're not putting up any money, at least with Merch by Amazon. There are other, listing services out there that you have to pay a little bit of money for. But still, if you can push past that and just get those listings up, it's been so impactful to see how that's just jump-started some people's businesses. And now they actually have data to look at and can take that data and move forward. And that's really what you're trying to do with these 100 listings, is get some data so you can work off of that, so you can double down and split test and all those things that we talk about. You can make your crazy, beautiful Excel spreadsheets and have them filled out like automatically and all these things, but you need that data initially to start with. And we found the best way to do that is to make these 100 listings.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, even if you put up 100 shirts and none of them sell, that's still a lot of data that you can collect and see and test and try different things. It's not like you put 100 up and the only one that sells, that's the only piece of data you can have. It's like Edison when he made the light bulb. He didn't just make one design and it worked. He made, I don't know if it's 3,000, I don't remember the exact number, but he made 3,000 light bulbs, but he found one that actually worked. I think it's the same in POD. You're just testing the market. Think of yourself like a scientist. You're trying to see what works. You have to try a lot of things to finally find success. And then once that works, it wasn't like every time he wanted a light bulb, he had to make 3,000 different light bulbs. He was like, now I have the secret sauce. Now I know how to make a light bulb. Now, small tweaks, energy changes, the amount of wattage and everything, but it's still the same concept. Try a whole bunch of things, especially in the beginning. Find something that works, and then start finding your Goldilocks zone and being able to go, this is where I need to compete because I'm having the most success here. We're getting quite a bit of questions. I really like these guys to jump on camera. So if you have a question, we'll read it off tonight, but I will be trying to emphasize people jumping on camera with us. I just truly think it is the way that business will be done moving forward. A lot of times it's how me and Nathaniel are doing a lot more business, and I want to help people get more comfortable in front of the camera, because there is just so many doors that have opened up from us from just doing these Monday calls. It's almost mind-bending to think back, like we did these Monday calls and it led into us doing a live presentation. That live presentation opened up into a whole bunch of amazing friendships, opportunities, business opportunities. But it all started with just getting on camera. And I might have deleted this video, and looking back, I probably should have, but at the time I was like, that looks bad. But if you go back on our channel and try to find the very first one that we did, you can see that it was not this polished. It was not well lit. It didn't sound good. The quality of the video was horrible. That's all fine. Just like this 100 listings, whatever you do in the beginning is not going to be the amazing thing, but it's a start. But I really want to help people get comfortable in front of the camera. So I will answer some of these questions, but moving forward, I'm going to try to be coaxing people on to ask the question live, because I think there are elements of questions, especially when I read them, because numbers are my specialty, not words. I was going to try to be nice. I'm not illiterate, but it's very close. It's not my specialty. When reading this, I know I'm missing like what you're truly trying to get at.
And to ask follow-up questions. It's
Yes.
just better for us to do business like this.
Somebody was asking, did that bike shirt that Nate had a lot of success with autofill in Amazon search bar? The answer is no. Nathaniel, well, I don't want to speak for Nathaniel, but I can almost guarantee he didn't do any research online. He just had the idea and tested it out. Why it was so successful is what I uncovered from doing a lot of research of finding out where is this shirt with no help from tools, because the tools didn't really help me, especially at the time. There are some tools now, but they're still not that great. But at the time, there were no tools to help me. So I had to go through and manually search this thing and figure out where it was showing up. I caught it early enough to where he was having some sales and it was growing daily, to go, okay, where is it showing up? And then the next day do the same type of research and go, where is it showing up now? Finding out that it was a St. Pete riding shirt was like what I think was getting most of the traffic, and that's where he was getting most of the sales. Not necessarily the name of the trail, but just the fact that a customer path for them to find the shirt was St. Pete riding shirt. There were enough people searching that and nothing coming up that Nathaniel shirt was the only option, that they were buying it. And because Nathaniel did put Florida in his listing and a few other luckily added words, because it wasn't like he did any research. He was just like, oh, this is a St. Pete, Florida riding, and then he put the riding, like he just built a listing off of his own terminology. But he just so happened to stumble into like a gold mine that nobody else was touching. And that's why I think just getting listings up, you'll start landing in those gaps. Because my mom, I think, stumbled across a big one that nobody was really going after. And I think that's why she's now starting to have some sales. But he did not do any initial research. He didn't go to the search bar. He didn't do any of that. He just got lucky from me researching and seeing, oh, if you start somewhere so far down where there's no competitors and you're starting to get sales and you've done a okay job at putting additional keywords in your listing, Amazon is going to try to put those shirts in a lot of other places where they think customers are going. And if it sells there, then they just keep bumping you up. That's why they have that internal sales rank on all those different categories and subcategories, and then go, oh, I think it's here his shirt goes. Oh, it's selling here? I think it goes here. It was almost like daily his shirt was showing up in more and more and more and more places. And because there was a huge gap in the market for Florida riding shirts, and his was the only option, he got a ton of sales. Now, this is all guesswork. I don't know. There's no guarantee that this is what happened. But from me doing searches daily, it became obvious that I could see patterns to go, it's not showing up here. Now it's showing up here. Now it's showing up under Florida t-shirt. Now it's since gone off of Florida t-shirt, but it was selling so much that it was on Florida t-shirt. Now, people that are looking for Florida t-shirt are not looking for a riding shirt, but I don't know if it's still on because I haven't checked it in a while. And I don't even know if that shirt is selling that much for you anymore, but Florida riding shirt is where it was living at the number one position. And he was getting a ton of sales. And I just think that was the most common way that people were customer path to bring sales to his shirt. He was getting a lot of other sales through a lot of other customer paths, but that's the one where I think it really took off.
If you guys have been watching for us for a while, you'll know we're not usually this energetic about this thing, but it has just become so clear to us that that is the like difference between people starting off and not having success, or even, you know, doing this for a couple of years and not having like the amount of success they want. It's just getting those things up. So I know that was Stephen giving a long-winded answer to that thing and bringing it back to the same topic that we're on, but like it's just been so clear, and it's so cool to see that that works. And even seeing that, you know, in a few weeks that we've been doing these coaching calls, that people are having success with that. Did you see that thing that Common just posted?
Yeah, that's not actually the video.
That's what I was going to say. So Common just posted like something
10 times better than the first video.
Gaman just posted a video that he thought was our first video that we ever put up. But the first video we ever did, we're both on the same screen or the same camera, because that's when I was living with Steven at the time. And
we just moved a desk in, and I broke the light switch, and the light switch busted is in the back. Like it's all bad. It's all bad.
Yeah.
And I have a heavy jacket on because we just came back from
we both had winter jackets on.
Yeah, we just came back from a meeting in the morning. I don't even remember what we were going for.
Probably a real estate thing at that time. Yeah,
I looked homeless. My hair was disheveled. My mom came in a few times and we were talking to her, not paying attention to what was going on. It was not good. That's why I deleted it. I think I deleted it. That's not even true. That wasn't even the first one. The first one we did was in the car ride to AJ's, because you had the phone.
Was that the first
dash?
One?
That was the very first video that we did. But that one was so bad you couldn't even hear it, because all you could hear was the car.
I don't think that one even went live because we like lost service halfway there. Like it was a whole thing as well. So yeah, we've been doing this for a while. It started off horribly, and it's gotten better. We're not quite at the level that we want to be, but it's much better. You can actually hear both of us and see both of us, which is good.
Yeah, Nathaniel looks a little ghostly right now because we were playing around with the camera settings.
Yeah, the settings.
And I'm going to pick up a better mic, because this one to me, now when people are like, you sound tingy, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But now when I hear with better headphones and better audio, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's how it's supposed to sound. Oh, yeah, I need a better mic.
Yeah. All right, we're at 6:50. Do we want to answer some more questions, or should we just save these up for next week and kind of close the call out here? Because we have easily another 30 minutes of stuff to talk about, but I don't know if we want to keep going.
I'll try to answer two of these quickly because they're research questions. And we have not done a lot of research videos. I'm moving a lot of our content over to YouTube. I have a lot of videos planned and already pre-recorded. It's just taking me time due to all the other stuff that we have going on. So I apologize, but we will be doing more research style videos. Me and some other people are actually even shooting videos. All that to say that that's going to come. I feel obligated now to answer these research questions because I know we have not talked about research in a while. It's mostly been art and just like concepts. But do you always add the word shirt when you're looking for keywords using landing zone method? I think I'm going to start steering away from the term landing zone. I think people understand what it is. But when I'm doing research, I'm really doing customer research, and I'm really trying to find customer paths. That's truly what we are doing when we're looking. That's why the very first step in looking for a landing zone is that it auto-completes. This is not now that Amazon's changing up some things, it's not as important, but you want to be using the keywords that your customers might be using in those customer paths. So the fact that it auto-completes or not auto-completes is becoming less relevant because of how Amazon is actually showing the auto-completes. It used to be before, if you typed in A, it would give you all kinds of A things. Now it's like you almost have to type out a full letter or a full word for it to show you anything. And sometimes you have to type in 3 or 4 words before it auto-suggests. The way that they're displaying is just different. And I'll maybe show that in a video later. But no, you do not have to have the word shirt in there. It is a product word So if you're typing in, say, like cat mom, and you search cat mom and you see that it's books and mugs and it's not shirts, that doesn't mean that it's not a good customer path to start following, but you might need to put shirt in there to see if customers are actually looking for shirts. Because if you do cat mom shirt, you'll see a lot more shirts. Then you can see the competition that you're going up against. But if it's something that's not as popular as cat moms, but it's something like St. Pete moms, that you could just use by itself. But as you make the listing, especially on merch, Amazon's already putting t-shirt on the end of it, or v-neck or sweater or whatever. So it's irrelevant if you are putting shirt in there or not. I shouldn't say it's irrelevant. It's not as important. You just have to understand what you're looking at. It's okay to not have shirt in there. It's okay to have shirt in there. One's not better than the other. You just have to understand the page that you're looking at and the possible competition that you'll be going against. Because Cat Mom is a lot more competitive on different levels because there's more products there. St. Pete Mom's shirt or St. Pete Mom might be less competitive. So when someone types in St. Pete Mom, they might be looking for a shirt. When they're typing in Cat Moms, they might be looking for a mug, not a shirt. So you're not going to be able to compete on that, just that keyword phrase alone. But you will be able to compete on Cat Mom shirt. Does that make sense?
No. I think you explaining that in a video will be so much more helpful. I know I'm not a data guy, but if you are a data person and that helps you, I'm glad. But for me, I just stopped listening to Steven about 30 seconds in because I knew that one was going to be
no problem. This last one I'll try to answer much quicker. I think what they're asking is the 100 shirts that I made, were some of them color variations? And the answer to that is no. I don't have like the same design and then only put it on black and then the same design only put on red and then count those as two separate listings. I still put all different color variations that design looks good on that, and it's still one design, one with multiple color variations, and it's one listing. It's not, oh, I put this on 5 different colors, now it's 5 different listings. That's not how I'm making multiple listings. There are some other ones, but I think one, because I'm answering them too long, I'll let you answer whatever you answer that.
I'll have one. Carol is asking.
I can't wait for you to ask and answer an art question so I can say the same thing, because that was extremely disrespectful. Got me so bad I'm stumbling over my words. No, go for it. Sorry, Carol is asking. Sorry, one more thing. Did you watch the Masvidal fight? His interview when he said super necessary?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I go for it.
Carol is asking that you shouldn't put the word shirt or t-shirt or etc. in your description or bullet points anymore. For merch by Amazon, they don't want you adding the actual product in there because we can list multiple products now. So if you're putting the word shirt in your description or your bullet points, and then you're making a listing that's going on, say, a pop socket, it's just not going to make sense for the buyer. So they are asking that you either say this product or this apparel or a more generic word like that. So that's why they're asking that. And I believe it actually flags it now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right inside. It does it for the bullet points and the title. I'm not sure if it does it for the bullet points. Yeah. Sorry, it does it for the brand.
Title and brand. Yeah. Sometimes it'll flag it and not let you push it through, and sometimes it'll just flag it and let you know. I don't know why it does one or the other, but I think they're going towards it just will not let you post it.
I think it was suggested at one time, and now they're being a little bit more on top of it. Okay, Mark's asking, he joined late and wants to know where the replays are posted. They will be posted on YouTube, so youtube.com, and the channel name is WingMan University. You can find last week's replay there.
Nope, not yet. Don't lie
Sorry, you can find 2 weeks ago replay there.
It's coming.
We're working on that. Actually, tomorrow we're spending most of the day figuring out our video process so we can get them edited and up on YouTube much quicker. So we were working on that. Okay, the last thing I saw, Common was saying that we need a shirts uploaded daily scoreboard in the Facebook group. I don't think that's a good idea because
I was going to say
me and Steven are both very competitive and nothing else will get done.
I was going to start putting up some numbers. And the fact that I'm using my VA slightly differently and we can really start cranking them out.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to 1,000 a day.
We're not saying that forever the best thing to do is just constantly throw stuff at the wall. So it's not even a numbers game where it's like, we're trying to put up 10,000 a day. Like, we did the 1,000 a day thing for a while, and we're like, this is not actually helping us grow. And it's a lot of frustration to stay at this pace for so long. So there are different tactics, and that's what our encouragement was to Michelle. If you remember back in the middle of this call when we started talking about that call that we had with her, it was do this process, and then you can use, this spreadsheet that you use or have, and the way that you're thinking about data is extremely healthy. You just don't have any of this upfront information to help you yet. So it's not just always a numbers game where you just got to be constantly cranking out stuff. You're looking for that initial data. Then you can, as we say, double down and split test, which are two strategies that we use from looking at the sales that we're having to strategically find those customers, which, there's a lot more strategy that goes into that. And I will just say that we'll talk about that at a later time. But this is not just a complete numbers competition where we're just like wanting to, constantly throw stuff at the wall. It's a headache to do things that way.
And I think something else that we have talked about and had a lot of calls on is we don't want this to be competitive. We want this to be a together thing. We've talked about starting small groups. Me and Nathaniel are really having a lot of conversations about these small groups. I think it is something that we're definitely going to do. We have a lot of ideas. We're just trying to tighten those up. If you're interested in those smaller groups, definitely let us know, because we are trying to see how many people.
I think enough people have let us know that it's going to happen.
Well, no, I just want to see like how many people should we be putting in these small groups? Do they need to be like 20 to 30 to 40 or 100 for each one, or 10 to 5? Like, we're just trying to gauge, I guess, that too. If you're interested in a small group, and then how many people would you like to be in a small group, so that me and Nathaniel can devise strategies. If it's like we need to run all of them or partner up with people, that's, I guess, the more of the talks that we are currently having. So if you're into that, please let us know, and how many other people you'd be interested in those small groups, because I know for a fact I would not be doing this business without Nathaniel. And then other people that we are working with, it's becoming blatantly obvious that more people are having success with other people and partnering and getting in these small groups than by trying to do everything by themselves. Because there's so many, like my mother coming home yesterday had hit me with all kinds of questions. Like, there's so many things in this business that you just need sometimes to bounce ideas off of somebody. Even if you both don't have the answer, you at least know kind of where you're standing. You can clarify what the next step should be. And I think we have taken that for granted. I know I've especially taken that for granted, especially when me and Dale started. We had a ton of conversations that there was no like answer that came out of it, but just an idea of how to move forward out of that conversation. I think that is
my favorite conversations, by the way. Especially at 1 and 2 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, you don't like when I knocked on the door and woke up?
No.
What, you trying to sleep, boy? We trying to sell some things here. Well, all that to say, we're going to be doing small groups. And then if you could check out our YouTube channel. A lot of people are saying the long form calls are hard sometimes when you have 5-10 minutes. I am chopping up these calls. Nathaniel is actually doing separate videos just for YouTube. I am starting to do videos just for YouTube. It just feels like that is a much better fit for us because we love doing videos. So YouTube is where we're going to put a lot more of our time, energy, and effort. So if you're watching us on Facebook, thank you. Check us out on YouTube. If you're here in Zoom, check us out on YouTube. We have a lot more content, quicker, more to the point, answering questions more concisely over there. I love these Monday calls just so that we can go and be long-winded. You can see how me and Nathaniel amp up or cut each other off. I like that live feel of that, and I do want to bring more people onto this call because I really do want this to be a tight-knit community. I love when we go to conferences, people come up to us and say thank you, hey, and then we like have a small group there where we bounce ideas off and talk to people. I want to start a local group here. I would like Nathaniel to start a local group in Atlanta, but I just like that feel of more people and the interaction of people, because I know this is a lonely business and it gets frustrating sometimes when you don't have people to reach out to. We want to be the people that you reach out to. Let's collectively figure out what's working and then help each other out in this process of whatever your goals are. We have some big goals to help more people reach their goals.
It's not even comparable when, it's even just me and Steven working on things, like our energy level when we bring in someone new, or like we've just done a ton of these 20-minute calls, like our energy level throughout the day thinking about this business, for me at least, is like way higher, just because we know the information that we're putting out is actually helping people make money, and the conversations that are coming from that are fun to have. And we can be like, oh yeah, remember this thing that we did 3 years ago, and that's actually helpful to this person today, like in this problem or this bottleneck that they
that
face.
failing, crying, and blood, sweat, and tears wasn't worth this. It's actually going to help somebody.
That, like, you know, just, it's just way more energizing. So we appreciate you guys. We want to be more in community with you. We want you guys on camera with us. We want to talk with you guys more. It's just way more fun to do the business like this than it is when we're just like talking directly to the camera and feel like, you know, we don't know who's watching. We're seeing numbers, but we don't know who's actually watching. So we appreciate you guys. The small group idea is something that we're still juggling with. Who do we pull in to help us with this? How many people? All those like the back end stuff that has to happen for that to work out. We want to, you know, try to put together something that's going to be long lasting and not just like, here's an idea for the weekend, we're going to try and do this thing. So we're taking our time. We're trying to be, you know, taking as much advice from people who have done those things in the past and try to use that to just make something that's going to last. So we appreciate you guys. We loved these 20-minute calls, like Steven said. Unfortunately, because we're in Q4 and we are actually still running a business, we don't have the time to do sometimes like 4 to 6 of these calls in a day anymore. But it was a blast, and we really appreciate you guys doing those calls with us. So something that we want to try out, and if you watch this long, we appreciate you for sticking around this long. But something that we want to do is, instead of trying to do these 20-minute calls, using this time that we have on Monday, obviously we can go a little bit later here, to answer some of you guys' questions. So if you're interested in having us, you know, look at your listing, or just have an answer or a conversation with us, or if you want to pre-record a question and send it to us, we're not quite sure how that's going to look or how it's going to shake down, if we have to set up a Google form or something like that. But we just want to see if there's interest in doing that, kind of like we were seeing the interest in the 20-minute calls. You guys were interested in that. That went great. So we want to try a new idea. And instead of doing a bunch of these calls and then bringing them to the Monday night show, we were like, why don't we just do the Monday or these calls on the Monday night show and just have this conversation again. That's what we're trying to do here, is start this conversation, see where you guys are at, and allow you guys to ask us questions just from the experience that we've had inside of this business. So if you have any questions or anything like that that you want to send us, you can either post them to the page. You can go to our messenger and message us there, or if you're comfortable messaging us directly, you can do that as well. And we're trying to figure out the best way to handle that. If you're sending us recordings and all that, we're trying to figure that out with you as we move forward. So just, yeah, be patient with us as we figured this idea out. So like Steven said, he's cutting up these calls to be a little bit shorter over on YouTube. So if there's a part of this call that you want to hear, hopefully he will clip that appropriately and put it up on YouTube. We're trying to figure that out. Tomorrow is dedicated to that, the best way that we can do that for you guys. But we do just want you guys to check out that YouTube channel. For the past maybe 2 months, we've been making just original content completely for YouTube. It hasn't been as scheduled out as we would have liked it, or as these Monday night calls are. But we're learning a lot about the YouTube platform and enjoying seeing people finding our content and actually being able to go back and see the archive of content that we have, which is the main reason we switched over to YouTube. It's just a lot easier to find our older videos and show people videos that we've done and send them the link. It's just a lot better than Facebook for us. So if you guys wouldn't mind to go check out our YouTube channel, there's some pretty cool content and some new things that we're thinking about talking about over there, like Shopify and some other ideas, even these small groups, so like helping each other find, you know, community and things like that. We're enjoying our time. We're thankful for you guys watching and spending time with us. But until next week, unless Steven has anything else to say.
No, I think we are good. Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video. Please leave us a like if you liked it, a dislike if you disliked it, subscribe to see more, and comment below if you have any questions. All right guys, take it easy.